Zara Williams stood frozen as the boardroom erupted in applause. The contract bearing her signature lay before billionaire investor Haruki Tanaka. Nobody bothered looking at the 12-year-old black girl who had entered as a hotel maid's daughter but would exit controlling their futures. Before I dive into this incredible story that will change how you think about hidden talent and opportunity, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you believe everyone deserves to be seen and heard regardless of their background. Now let's discover how one overlooked girl changed everything with just her hands and courage. Zara Williams loved accompanying her mother Denise to work at the prestigious Grand Atlantic Hotel in Manhattan, where she cleaned the executive suites and conference rooms. The 12-year-old found fascination in the gleaming marble lobbies and crystal chandeliers that contrasted sharply with their cramped one-bedroom apartment in Harlem. Despite her exceptional intelligence and remarkable gift for languages, Zara remained invisible to the wealthy white executives who barely acknowledged her mother's existence. She would quietly trail behind Denise, carrying extra towels or cleaning supplies, her keen eyes observing the power dynamics playing out in the luxury establishment. At school, Zara faced constant discrimination from teachers who underestimated her abilities despite test scores that topped her class. Her English teacher frequently accused her of plagiarism when she submitted vocabulary-rich essays, unable to believe a black girl from her neighborhood could write so eloquently. Classmates mocked her second-hand clothes and the fact that she never participated in costly field trips, creating a social barrier that left her isolated. The cafeteria became a daily exercise in humiliation as she sat alone with her free lunch while groups of more affluent students whispered and pointed. Her one sanctuary became the public library, 6 blocks from their apartment, where she spent hours devouring books on various subjects, particularly linguistics. It was there she met Mrs. Yoshida, an elderly Japanese-American librarian who was deaf. The kind woman noticed Zara's interest in language books and offered to teach her American Sign Language. Over months of after-school sessions, Zara not only mastered ASL but began learning Japanese Sign Language as well, displaying an uncanny ability to absorb and retain complex linguistic patterns. This particular week was especially challenging, as spring break meant Zara couldn't stay home alone while Denise worked her 12-hour shifts. The hotel was hosting a crucial international business conference where Blackwood Enterprises, led by the notoriously arrogant CEO Richard Montgomery, was attempting to secure a billion-dollar technology partnership with Japanese place conglomerate Tanaka Industries. Montgomery, a tall man with steel-gray hair and cold blue eyes, treated the hotel staff with particular disdain, seeming to take special pleasure in highlighting perceived inadequacies in service. On their very first morning, Montgomery had made blatantly racist comments when Denise accidentally interrupted a meeting to refresh water pitchers. "Can't you people read the room?" he had snapped loudly. "We're in the middle of billion-dollar negotiations here. Your cleaning can wait." He forced her to work overtime without additional pay that evening, threatening her job if she objected. Denise, a single mother with no financial safety net, had swallowed the humiliation silently. Zara, hiding in a supply closet to read while her mother completed the extra work, had witnessed this mistreatment and silently fumed, her small hands clenched into tight fists. Meanwhile, tension built throughout the hotel as the Tanaka delegation arrived from Tokyo. The group was headed by Kenji Tanaka, the 45-year-old CFO, and his father Haruki Tanaka, the 70-year-old founder and chairman of the company. What the Blackwood team didn't realize was that the elder Tanaka had lost his hearing 15 years ago in an industrial accident, but kept this private in business settings to avoid being underestimated or disadvantaged in evertime negotiations. He typically relied on his son for discreet interpretation, avoiding traditional interpreters to maintain the confidentiality of high-stakes business discussions. The initial meetings were strained, as Richard Montgomery's team made culturally insensitive comments, dismissed Japanese business protocols regarding relationship building, and focused exclusively on aggressive American-style negotiations. Haruki Tanaka observed these interactions with growing displeasure. his weathered face revealing nothing while his son attempted to smooth over the cultural disconnects. By the end of the first day, the Japanese delegation retreated to their suites with serious doubts about proceeding with the partnership, creating a hostile atmosphere that threatened to derail negotiations before they truly began. The conference continued with mounting tension between Blackwood Enterprises and the Tanaka delegation. The second day of meetings proved even more disastrous than the first, as Richard Montgomery grew increasingly desperate and impatient. His presentation on market projections featured cartoonish illustrations of Asian consumers that made several Tanaka team members exchange uncomfortable glances. When Kenji Tanaka politely suggested a more nuanced approach to the Japanese market, Montgomery dismissed his concerns with a wave of his manicured hand. "Look, we know how to sell product in Asia. Your people love American technology. Trust me, we've run the numbers." His racist undertones became more apparent as he repeatedly blamed their cultural differences for the communication breakdown, unaware that Haruki Tanaka understood far more than he revealed through his son's translations. During a particularly tense exchange about manufacturing standards, Montgomery turned to his executive team and muttered, "This is why deals with the Japanese take forever. Everything has to be so precise." The elder Tanaka, reading his lips perfectly, narrowed his eyes slightly, but maintained his composed exterior. Meanwhile, Zara continued observing the proceedings while helping her overworked mother. Denise had been assigned to maintain the executive conference floor exclusively, meaning constant coffee service meal setups and cleaning between sessions. The workload was impossible for one person, so Zara quietly assisted by polishing water glasses, arranging notepads, and ensuring trash bins were emptied. Hotel management turned a blind eye to the child's presence, as long as the demanding Blackwood team remained satisfied with the service. During an afternoon coffee break, Zara noticed Haruki Tanaka sitting alone in the conference room, while others networked in the adjacent atrium. The elderly businessman remained at the table, reviewing documents with intense concentration. As Zara approached quietly to clean his water glass, she noticed him attempting to adjust his hearing aid discreetly, a movement she recognized from Mrs. Yoshida. When she accidentally dropped a napkin, their eyes met unexpectedly. What happened next stunned everyone who witnessed it. Zara, without hesitation, signed a simple greeting in Japanese sign language. "Good afternoon, sir. Would you like fresh water?" The transformation in Haruki's face was immediate and profound. His eyes widened with surprise before crinkling with genuine delight at finding someone who could communicate directly with him. He signed back asking her name and how she knew JSL. Their brief exchange was interrupted when Richard Montgomery returned to the conference room, his voice sharp with irritation. "What's going on here? Why is this child bothering Mr. Tanaka?" He dismissed Zara with a contemptuous glance and scolded Denise, who had rushed in after noticing the interaction. "Keep your daughter out of these rooms. This isn't a daycare center." Montgomery's tone carried the clear implication that Denise's job hung in the balance. Haruki observed this interaction with obvious displeasure, noting Montgomery's disrespect toward both mother and daughter. Later that afternoon, the elder Tanaka arranged through his assistant to meet Zara privately in the hotel garden during the evening dinner break. Curious about this young girl's knowledge of JSL, he found her reading alone on a bench, while her mother prepared the banquet hall for the evening function. Their conversation, conducted entirely in sign language, revealed Zara's remarkable linguistic talents and her dream of becoming an international translator. She explained how she had learned from Mrs. Yoshida at the library, practicing diligently every day after school. Haruki, genuinely impressed by her intelligence and determination, despite obvious discrimination, began to see her as more than just a maid's daughter. He shared stories of his own childhood in post-war Japan and the challenges he had overcome to build his technology empire. As negotiations deteriorated further inside, Kenji Tanaka confided in his father that he was seriously considering walking away from the deal with Blackwood. The cultural insensitivity and aggressive tactics had created an atmosphere of distrust that contradicted Tanaka Industries' core values of respect and harmonious business relationships. Haruki nodded thoughtfully, signing that he had concerns about Montgomery's character beyond just business incompatibility. Meanwhile, Richard Montgomery pressured Denise to work through the night, preparing for a final, desperate attempt to save the partnership. The hotel manager informed her that the entire conference floor needed to be transformed overnight into an impressive showcase of American business excellence, with fresh floral arrangements, multimedia setups, and elaborate breakfast service. Failure wasn't an option, he implied, especially given the disruption her daughter had caused earlier. Zara, now secretly communicating with Haruki through notes passed via his assistant, learned about his true thoughts regarding the partnership and the technological potential that could be realized if not for the cultural disconnection. She struggled with whether to share this information with her mother, understanding the precarious position they were in, but also recognizing the unfairness of the situation. The Blackwood team gathered in Richard Montgomery's luxurious suite late into the night, their desperation palpable as the billion-dollar deal appeared to be slipping through their fingers. Montgomery paced the room, his silk tie-loosened crystal tumbler of whiskey clutched in his hand. "I don't understand these people," he growled to his executive team, all white men from privileged backgrounds wearing nearly identical Navy suits. "We're offering them access to the largest consumer market in the world, and they're hung up on some perceived cultural slights." Vice President Thomas Keller, Montgomery's right-hand man, suggested they needed to find leverage to force the Japanese company's hand. "Every business has skeletons, Richard. Maybe we should have our research team dig deeper into Tanaka's operations." The men nodded in agreement, discussing potential pressure points from regulatory issues to competitor relationships, completely untroubled by the ethical implications of their strategies. Meanwhile, downstairs in the service corridors, Denise faced increasing harassment from the hotel management. Sandra Miller, the floor supervisor, a thin woman with perpetually pursed lips, assigned Denise the most physically demanding tasks while scrutinizing her work with unprecedented attention to detail. "These water spots on the mirrors are unacceptable," she criticized, though the spots were barely visible, even under direct light. The Tanaka delegation specifically requested Japanese tea service for their morning meeting, not standard American breakfast. How could you miss that detail? The accusations were unfair, as Denise had received no such instructions, but she remained silent. When she finally gathered the courage to ask about proper overtime pay for the additional 12 hours she'd worked that week, Sandra's expression hardened. "Perhaps you should focus more on keeping your job than getting extra pay. Bringing your daughter to work violates company policy, and I've been looking the other way." "Would you prefer I reported officially?" Denise, with no child care alternatives during spring break, swallowed her pride and accepted the mistreatment to preserve her employment. Zara continued her clandestine friendship with Haruki Tanaka, meeting him in the hotel garden where cherry trees were beginning to blossom. Under their gentle cover, she practiced more advanced Japanese sign language, with him absorbing new vocabulary with remarkable speed. Haruki shared stories of building his technology empire from nothing in post-war Japan, describing how losing his hearing 15 years ago had initially devastated him, but ultimately made him more attentive to nonverbal communication. In business, "Many people think deafness is only about loss," he signed, "but it taught me to see what others miss." Their connection deepened when he revealed that his own daughter showed no interest in learning sign language, preferring to communicate through interpreters or written notes. The admission carried visible sadness. "Family should speak heart to heart," he signed, "not through third parties." Zara confided her own experiences with discrimination at school and her dream of using languages to bridge cultural divides. "Words build bridges, or walls," she signed carefully. "I want to build bridges." Haruki nodded approvingly at her wisdom. The pressure escalated when Richard Montgomery discovered through industrial espionage that a competing American company, Sterling Innovations, had prepared a counteroffer to Tanaka Industries. Panic spread through the Blackwood team as they realized their exclusive negotiation window might close. Montgomery called for a formal dinner meeting at the hotel's prestigious rooftop restaurant, insisting that the ambiance and Manhattan skyline views would create an impression of American business dominance that the Japanese couldn't resist. In preparation, he explicitly instructed the hotel staff that no colored employees should be visible during the dinner. "This is a sophisticated affair," he told the hotel manager with a meaningful look. "We need staff who understand proper etiquette and won't distract from the business at hand." The racist implication was clear, and the hotel manager complied without protest, reassigning Denise to kitchen duty, despite her extensive experience in the dining room. During dinner preparation, Zara helped her mother transport clean glassware to the kitchen when she overheard Montgomery and Keller discussing their strategy in a service corridor. "The presentation data needs adjustments." Montgomery insisted, studying digital slides on his tablet. "Boost the market penetration projections by 15% and inflate the technology readiness metrics." "They won't know the difference." Keller hesitated momentarily. "The actual capability isn't there yet, Richard. We're at least 18 months from those benchmarks." Montgomery laughed dismissively. "The language barrier works in our favor. Their technical team can't possibly understand all the nuances in English. By the time they realize the discrepancy, we'll have their money and can figure out the development later." They shared a conspiratorial chuckle, unaware that Zara had heard every word. The young girl froze, understanding the ethical implications of their deception. If Tanaka Industries invested based on falsified capabilities, the partnership would be built on fraud. She felt torn between staying silent to protect her mother's job and potentially warning Haruki about the deception that could cost his company millions. "Do you believe 12-year-old Zara should risk her mother's livelihood to expose the truth about Montgomery's deception to Haruki Tanaka?" Comment number 1. If you think she should prioritize her family's financial security. Or comment number 2, if you believe she should warn Haruki despite the potential consequences. This moral dilemma highlights how discrimination creates impossible choices for its victims. Have you ever witnessed someone being mistreated in a professional setting because of their race? Hit that like button if you believe workplaces should have zero tolerance for discrimination, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that expose social injustice. How far would Montgomery go to secure this deal, and what would happen if Zara decided to intervene? The stakes were about to get much higher for everyone involved. The pivotal dinner meeting arrived on a clear spring evening, the Manhattan skyline creating a glittering backdrop through the rooftop restaurant's floor-to-ceiling windows. Both companies' representatives arrived dressed in formal business attire, the atmosphere thick with tension disguised as cordiality. The Blackwood executives wore matching power suits with American flag pins prominently displayed on their lapels, while the Japanese delegation opted for more conservative dark suits with subtle patterning. The hotel's white staff members, selected specifically for this event, served the executives with practiced efficiency, while Denise and other employees of color worked invisibly behind the scenes, rushing between the kitchen and service areas without entering the main dining room. Zara, officially banned from the event, had found ways to access service corridors and observation points her small size, allowing her to move unnoticed among the bustling kitchen staff. She felt concerned, for both her mother, who had been working 16 hours straight, and for Haruki Tanaka, who was about to be deliberately misled by Montgomery's team. The dinner progressed through several elaborate courses featuring American cuisine, with superficial Japanese influences that the Tanaka team politely acknowledged but barely touched. When coffee and dessert arrived, Richard Montgomery signaled for the presentation to begin. The lights dimmed as screens descended from ceiling recesses, displaying Blackwood's technical specifications and financial projections. The doctored data showed impossibly advanced technological capabilities and market penetration timelines that dramatically outperformed industry standards. Montgomery presented with absolute confidence, emphasizing how the partnership would revolutionize consumer technology in Asian markets specifically. "What you're seeing here represents capabilities no other American company can offer your organization," he declared, gesturing toward complex graphs with inflated metrics. "Our proprietary systems have already achieved 97% efficiency ratings in controlled tests." The Japanese delegation listened politely, with Kenji occasionally translating complex points for his father. However, Haruki seemed increasingly uncomfortable. shifting slightly in his seat and making brief notes on his tablet. His experienced eye had caught several technical inconsistencies despite the language barrier, and his instincts warned him something was amiss. During a brief intermission, while servers cleared dessert plates, Zara accidentally encountered Haruki in a quiet hallway leading to the restrooms. The elderly businessman had stepped away from the table, presumably for a break from the intense negotiations. When he spotted her, his face brightened immediately. Making sure they weren't observed, Zara signed rapidly in Japanese Sign Language, warning him about the manipulated data she had overheard Montgomery discussing. "The technology isn't ready," her fingers explained urgently. "They changed numbers to look better. 18 months behind what they claim." Haruki's expression remained composed, but his eyes reflected concern and gratitude. He signed back, asking why she would risk her mother's job to help him. Zara's response was simple yet profound. "Dishonesty is wrong, no matter who gets hurt. You've been kind to me. They haven't." Their conversation was abruptly interrupted when Thomas Keller rounded the corner, his eyes narrowing suspiciously at finding them together. He roughly grabbed Zara's arm, his fingers digging painfully into her thin limb. "What are you doing back here?" he demanded. "This area is restricted during the event." When Haruki immediately stepped forward with a disapproving expression, Keller moderated his tone slightly, but maintained his grip on Zara. "Apologies, Mr. Tanaka. This girl shouldn't be bothering important guests." The commotion drew attention from nearby staff, and eventually Richard Montgomery, who rushed over with a falsely concerned expression. "What's happening here?" he asked, then affected surprise at seeing Zara. "The maid's daughter again. I specifically requested she be kept away from our business discussions." He turned to Haruki with an obsequious smile. "I apologize profusely for this disruption, Mr. Tanaka. Some of our service staff don't understand professional boundaries." When Haruki gestured in obvious objection to Keller's rough handling of Zara, Montgomery misinterpreted, thinking the Japanese businessman was annoyed by the interruption. He ordered Denise, who had rushed in after hearing the commotion, to remove her daughter immediately. "This is completely unacceptable," he berated her publicly. "Your child care issues are not our problem. This is a billion-dollar negotiation, not a playground." His voice carried throughout the hallway, humiliating Denise in front of international executives and hotel management. Kenji Tanaka, noticing his father's increasing distress, stepped in with diplomatic firmness. "Perhaps we should conclude our discussions for tonight. We've covered significant ground, but our team needs time to review the technical specifications in detail." His tone made it clear this wasn't a suggestion, but a decision. Montgomery attempted to object, but Kenji politely remained firm. "We will continue tomorrow afternoon after our technical team has analyzed the presentation materials." The Japanese delegation bowed politely and withdrew, leaving Montgomery fuming in the hallway. Later that night, after most guests had retired, Montgomery confronted the hotel manager in his office, demanding Denise's immediate termination. "That woman and her daughter have interfered with my business for the last time," he insisted, pounding his fist on the manager's desk. "I want her gone before morning." When the manager hesitantly mentioned Denise's excellent 7-year work record, Montgomery cut him off. "Either she goes, or Blackwood takes all our considerable business elsewhere. Your choice." When Denise was called to the office and informed of the complaint, she pleaded that she had no other child care options during school break. Montgomery, who had remained to witness her humiliation, suggested cruelly that proper planning was required for professional environments. "People who can't manage their personal responsibilities shouldn't be employed in luxury establishments catering to executives like myself," he added with smug satisfaction. The hotel manager, fearful of losing Blackwood's extensive business, which accounted for nearly 30% of their corporate bookings, reluctantly prepared termination papers, despite Denise's tearful objections and exemplary work history. Meanwhile, Haruki met privately with his son in their suite, revealing through sign language what Zara had told him about the falsified data. Kenji, initially skeptical, examined the presentation materials more carefully, comparing them with industry benchmarks and Blackwood's previously published technical specifications. After an hour of analysis, he confirmed his father's suspicions. Multiple performance metrics had been artificially inflated, creating a deceptive picture of Blackwood's current capabilities. The girl was right, he told his father in JSL. They're selling technology they don't actually have yet. Haruki nodded grimly, his expression resolute. They decided to withdraw from negotiations entirely, but the elder Tanaka, impressed by Zara's ethical stand, despite personal risk, began formulating an alternative plan. He contacted his executive team in Tokyo, requesting extensive background research on several companies, including Blackwood's main competitor, Sterling Innovations. He also asked for information about Denise and Zara Williams, his weathered hands signing with increasing conviction as a new possibility took shape in his strategic mind. The following morning brought crisis for multiple parties. Denise arrived at the employee entrance at 5:30. As usual, her eyes red-rimmed from a sleepless night spent worrying about their future. Zara accompanied her, unusually quiet and clutching her mother's hand tightly. At the security desk, Denise's keycard failed to register. The security guard, avoiding eye contact, directed her to the Human Resources office, where she found her locker emptied its contents, packed in a cardboard box and termination papers, awaiting her signature. "This is completely unfair," she protested, voice trembling with a mixture of anger and fear. "I've worked here for 7 years without a single disciplinary issue." The HR manager, a woman who had previously praised Denise's work ethic, stared at her computer screen rather than meeting her eyes. "The decision comes directly from upper management following a guest complaint. I'm sorry, but it's effective immediately." When Denise refused to sign the termination papers, insisting on wrongful dismissal, 2 security guards appeared with unsettling speed, suggesting they'd been waiting nearby. "Please don't make this more difficult," one murmured, as they escorted her from the building, the cardboard box with her belongings clutched against her chest. Zara, waiting outside, watched in horror as her mother exited the Grand Hotel in tears, jobless, after 7 years of loyal service. Their financial situation already precarious, with rent due in 10 days and utility bills piling up, now became dire. They had less than $400 in savings, no health insurance without Denise's job, and few immediate prospects in Manhattan's competitive hospitality industry. At the same time, 28 floors above in the presidential suite, Richard Montgomery received word via early morning phone call that Tanaka Industries was withdrawing from negotiations completely. The Japanese delegation had checked out of the hotel before dawn, leaving only a formal letter, citing irreconcilable differences in business ethics and practices as their reason for termination. Montgomery threw his phone against the wall in fury, shattering it into pieces that scattered across the luxury carpet. "Someone talk to them," he seethed to Thomas Keller, who had rushed to his suite after receiving similar news. "Someone leaked information about our presentation adjustments." Blackwood's stock had already dropped 7% in pre-market trading as rumors of the failed partnership spread through financial circles. Montgomery demanded the hotel's security footage, throwing around threats about lawsuits and breach of confidentiality. The hotel management, still eager to appease their important client, despite his increasingly erratic behavior, provided access to the previous day's surveillance recordings. Hours of reviewing footage revealed the brief interaction between Zara and Haruki Tanaka in the hallway during the dinner break. Though without audio, their animated hand movements clearly indicated communication beyond casual interaction. Montgomery, connecting these dots with alarming speed, became convinced that the maid's brat had somehow interfered with his billion-dollar deal. "Find out everything about this woman and her daughter," he instructed Blackwood's security team. "I want to know where they live, where the kid goes to school, everything. Nobody ruins my deals without consequences." Driven by rage and deeply ingrained prejudice, Montgomery used his considerable influence to blacklist Denise from employment at any major hotel in Manhattan. When she applied for positions at establishments where she had connections, she discovered her references mysteriously unavailable or receiving negative reports about her performance. Each interview ended with polite rejection despite her experience and qualifications. The Williams family faced eviction as their savings rapidly depleted. They cut expenses drastically, eating simple rice and bean meals, eliminating all non-essentials, and selling their television and Denise's grandmother's jewelry to make April's rent payment. May loomed with no solution in sight. Zara, overwhelmed with guilt, believing her actions cost her mother's career, became withdrawn and anxious. She stopped visiting the library and lost interest in her language studies, spending hours staring silently out their apartment window instead. "It's not your fault, baby," Denise assured her repeatedly, though the strain showed in the new lines around her eyes and mouth. "Standing up for what's right has consequences sometimes, but that doesn't mean you were wrong." Despite these reassurances, Zara attempted twice to reach Haruki Tanaka at his hotel, before learning the delegation had departed. On her third attempt, she brought a letter explaining their situation, hoping to slip it to one of the Japanese delegates who might forward it to Tanaka Industries in Tokyo. The security guards, now alert to her presence, blocked her from entering the building. Eventually, a kind-hearted bellhop agreed to deliver her message, though whether it actually reached anyone associated with Tanaka remained unknown. Days passed with no response, increasing her despair and conviction that she had sacrificed her mother's livelihood for nothing. Meanwhile, tensions escalated among the Blackwood executives as news of the failed Japanese partnership spread throughout the industry. The company's stock price dropped 23% in 3 days, triggering emergency board meetings and frantic calls from major shareholders. Industry analysts questioned Montgomery's leadership publicly, with several financial news outlets reporting on rumors of ethical concerns raised by the Japanese delegation. Behind closed doors, board members demanded explanations, while discussing potential leadership changes in hushed tones. Montgomery's behavior became increasingly erratic as pressure mounted. He drank heavily during business hours, lashed out at subordinates for minor issues, and made paranoid accusations about corporate espionage and sabotage. During one particularly volatile outburst in the executive dining room, he made explicitly racist comments about Denise and Zara. "That black maid and her sneaky daughter cost this company millions," he shouted, pounding the table and sloshing expensive Bordeaux onto white tablecloths. "These people get hired because of diversity quotas and then undermine American business interests." He remained unaware that his assistant was recording the conversation on her phone, disgusted by his behavior and already in contact with a headhunter about alternative employment. The situation reached its breaking point when Denise received an official eviction notice, giving them 72 hours to vacate their apartment. That same evening, as she sat at their small kitchen table, calculating which necessities they could fit into 2 suitcases for a move to her distant cousin's crowded apartment in Newark, an unexpected knock came at their door. Opening it cautiously, Denise found a professionally dressed man who identified himself as Mr. Sato, an executive assistant to Tanaka Industries. "Miss Williams," he inquired politely, "I have something for you and your daughter." He presented a cream-colored envelope bearing the Tanaka corporate seal. Inside was an invitation for both Denise and Zara to attend a meeting at Tanaka's temporary New York offices the following morning at 10 o'clock. The invitation offered no explanation but promised resolution of your current difficulties and included $200 cash for transportation and appropriate business attire. "Mr. Prastreet, doivent duel sèche." Sato pointed to a luxury car waiting at the curb. "I will collect you at 9 tomorrow morning if that is convenient." After he departed, mother and daughter stared at each other in stunned silence, the eviction notice momentarily forgotten, as they wondered what tomorrow might bring. Denise and Zara arrived at the gleaming glass tower housing Tanaka Industries' New York branch at precisely 10 o'clock the following morning. They had used the provided money to purchase simple but professional outfits, Denise in a navy skirt suit and Zara in a modest gray dress with a white collar. Both had spent hours the previous night preparing, alternating between nervous speculation and cautious hope. The security guards in the lobby, unlike those at the hotel, treated them with respectful deference after verifying their names against an approved visitor list. They were surprised to be escorted directly to the executive floor by Mr. Sato rather than through service entrances they typically used at similar establishments. The elevator doors opened onto a minimalist reception area featuring Japanese art pieces and a spectacular view of Central Park. Haruki and Kenji Tanaka awaited them, both rising and bowing as they entered. Miss Williams, Miss Zara Kenji, greeted them warmly in English before his father stepped forward with an even warmer smile. Zara immediately began signing in JSL, translating between her mother and Haruki with newfound confidence. The elderly businessman's eyes crinkled with pleasure at her improved fluency after only a week's separation. After serving traditional green tea in an elegant conference room, Haruki explained through Zara's translation why they had been invited. "Your daughter has an extraordinary gift," he signed, his weathered hands moving gracefully. "Not just for languages, but for courage and integrity. These qualities are rare in business, particularly in someone so young." He revealed that he had been deeply impressed by Zara's willingness to warn him about Blackwood's deception despite the obvious personal risk. Kenji continued the explanation verbally while his father nodded agreement. Tanaka Industries was launching a new communication technology division focused on accessibility tools for deaf and hearing-impaired communities worldwide. Their flagship project involved artificial intelligence-enhanced translation between spoken language and various sign languages, with applications ranging from everyday communication to international business and diplomacy. However, Kenji admitted, "We face a significant challenge. Our technical team excels at software development, but we lack cultural consultants who truly understand both the technical aspects and lived experiences of communication barriers. Most importantly, we need diversity of perspective to ensure our solutions work across cultures." To Denise's astonishment, Haruki signed an offer that Zara translated with widening eyes. Tanaka Industries wanted to hire Denise as a community relations coordinator for the project at an annual salary of $90,000, triple her former hotel income. The position would include comprehensive health insurance, educational benefits, and flexible hours to accommodate Zara's school schedule. More surprisingly, they proposed hiring Zara herself as a youth consultant, working after school and during summers for $30 per hour, with a substantial college scholarship fund established in her name, starting at $50,000 and growing annually with interest. Both offers included immediate signing bonuses of $10,000 each that would resolve their financial crisis and provide stability while they transitioned to their new roles. While mother and daughter sat speechless processing this life-changing opportunity, Haruki shared something else. He produced a tablet showing surveillance footage obtained from the Grand Atlantic Hotel through Tanaka's corporate security team. The videos clearly documented Montgomery's discriminatory behavior toward hotel staff, with particular focus on his interactions with Denise. Multiple instances showed him treating white employees with basic courtesy while berating staff of color for identical situations. "Our legal team believes you have grounds for a substantial workplace discrimination lawsuit," Kenji explained, while Haruki nodded gravely. "If you choose to pursue this, Tanaka Industries would fully support your case with legal resources and testimony." Denise, though deeply grateful for their support, expressed hesitation about entering a prolonged legal battle against someone as powerful and vindictive as Richard Montgomery. "I just want to move forward," she explained, her voice steady, despite the emotion visible in her eyes. "Fighting him might bring justice, but it would keep us looking backward instead of toward our future." Meanwhile, at Blackwood headquarters, Richard Montgomery's situation deteriorated by the hour. The recording of his racist tirade had been anonymously forwarded to several board members, creating internal chaos as the company's legal team assessed potential liability. Simultaneously, he received devastating news that Tanaka Industries had announced a major partnership with Sterling Innovations, instead Blackwood's main competitor in the consumer technology space. The exclusive deal, valued at $1.2 billion, sent Sterling's stock soaring 43%, while Blackwood's plummeted further. When Montgomery desperately attempted to contact Haruki Tanaka directly to salvage some aspect of the relationship, his calls went unanswered and emails received automated responses. Unknown to Montgomery, Haruki Tanaka had developed an entirely new business strategy, inspired partly by his conversations with Zara. While Blackwood's technology had valuable applications, their development approach excluded considerations for accessibility or global inclusivity. By contrast, when approached with the possibility of partnership, Sterling Innovation's leadership demonstrated immediate enthusiasm for adapting their products to serve differently abled users worldwide. Their willingness to incorporate Tanaka's accessibility expertise into core product design rather than as an afterthought aligned perfectly with Haruki's vision for technology that served humanity rather than merely generating profit. Before concluding their meeting, the Tanaka team invited Denise and Zara to attend the formal partnership announcement with Sterling Innovations the following week. "Your presence would be meaningful to us," Kenji explained, while his father signed agreement. In many ways, this new direction exists because of Zara's courage. Though still processing their drastically changed circumstances, mother and daughter accepted with grateful smiles, marveling at how their lives had transformed in a matter of hours. As they prepared to leave the office, completing preliminary paperwork for their new positions, they noticed Richard Montgomery, arriving in the lobby below his normally immaculate appearance, slightly disheveled from stress. They watched from the executive floor as he demanded to see Haruki Tanaka immediately. The security guards, who had been briefed about the situation and recognized Zara and Denise as valued Tanaka associates, respectfully held the door for the Williams women, while making Montgomery wait for proper visitor clearance. Procedures. Do you believe Richard Montgomery deserves consequences, beyond losing the business deal for his discriminatory behavior? Comment number 1. If you think the market punishment of Blackwood's falling stock is sufficient. Or comment number 2. If you believe he should face personal legal repercussions for his actions against Denise and other employees. This situation highlights how power dynamics in corporate America often shield individuals from accountability for discrimination. Have you ever witnessed someone being recognized for talents that others previously overlooked? Like this video, if you believe we need more Haruki Tanakas in business who see value in people regardless of their background or position. Subscribe to hear how this story concludes and discover whether Montgomery faces justice for his actions. With the tables now turned, how would Zara use her new position and voice? The partnership announcement would prove to be even more dramatic than anyone anticipated. News of Tanaka Industries' partnership with Sterling Innovations devastated Blackwood Enterprises beyond anyone's expectations. Their stock plummeted 40% in 2 days as investors lost confidence, triggering emergency board meetings and frantic damage control efforts. Several major clients began reconsidering their contracts, concerned about the company's stability and the troubling rumors circulating about leadership ethics. Financial analysts published scathing assessments questioning Blackwood's technical capabilities, speculating that Tanaka had discovered significant shortcomings during due diligence. Richard Montgomery faced mounting pressure as board members demanded explanations for both the failed negotiations and the emerging allegations of discriminatory behavior from multiple sources. An emergency shareholders meeting was scheduled for the following month with his leadership as the primary agenda item. Meanwhile, Zara and Denise began their new roles at Tanaka's New York office with a mixture of excitement and lingering disbelief at their changed circumstances. They had moved from their cramped Harlem apartment to a comfortable 2-bedroom unit in a doorman building closer to Tanaka headquarters, paid for by their generous signing bonuses. Denise's position as Community Relations Coordinator involved organizing focus groups with deaf individuals from diverse backgrounds to test prototype communication devices. Her perspective, as someone new to deaf culture but sensitive to diversity issues, proved invaluable, identifying blind spots in the research approach. She quickly demonstrated leadership abilities that had gone unrecognized during her years, in service positions earning respect from the predominantly Japanese executive team. Zara, while continuing her education at a new school with stronger academic programs, spent afternoons and weekends at Tanaka offices, providing insight into youth accessibility needs. She worked directly with Haruki, their sign language sessions becoming increasingly sophisticated as they discussed complex translation challenges across different sign language systems. The elderly businessman introduced her to accomplished deaf professionals in various fields, expanding her understanding of deaf culture beyond her limited experience with Mrs. Yoshida. The young girl's perspectives proved remarkably valuable, identifying cultural nuances the engineering team had overlooked and suggesting interface improvements that would appeal to younger users. Preparations for the formal partnership announcement between Tanaka Industries and Sterling Innovations progressed rapidly scheduled exactly 2 weeks after the failed Blackwood negotiations. The event would showcase their revolutionary communication technology publicly for the first time, demonstrating how Sterling's consumer electronics would incorporate Tanaka's accessibility features to create products usable by deaf hearing impaired and hearing consumers equally. Behind the scenes, Zara contributed significantly to the presentation materials, ensuring they were accessible to deaf audience members and translated appropriately across cultures. Her suggestions for demonstrating the technology's capabilities became central to the presentation strategy, impressing Victoria Chen, Sterling's progressive CEO. Richard Montgomery, growing increasingly desperate as his company spiraled toward crisis, discovered through corporate espionage that Zara and Denise now worked for Tanaka. The information sent him into a rage, smashing a crystal decanter against his office wall and terrifying his assistant, who submitted her resignation the following day. "That little hotel brat is working for them," he shouted during an executive meeting. "This is corporate espionage, plain and simple. She must have been planted in that hotel to steal our proprietary information." Though his colleagues exchanged concerned glances at this paranoid outburst, Montgomery remained convinced he'd been targeted deliberately. Viewing the situation as personal betrayal rather than consequences of his own actions, he developed an aggressive plan to disrupt the partnership announcement and discredit Tanaka Industries publicly. He hired private investigators to dig into Denise's background, instructing them to find anything damaging, no matter how minor. Simultaneously, his team prepared a competing product announcement scheduled deliberately to overshadow Tanaka and Sterling's event, claiming breakthrough accessibility features that existed only in concept drawings. The investigators Montgomery hired delivered results faster than expected, uncovering that Denise had a minor shoplifting charge as a 17-year-old taking food during a period of homelessness after her mother's death. Though the charge had been expunged from public records following community service and her subsequent spotless record, the investigators had accessed sealed juvenile court documents through questionable methods. Montgomery immediately recognized this information as leverage. He arranged for Thomas Keller to accidentally encounter Denise near her new apartment building, using the seemingly chance meeting to deliver a thinly veiled threat. "Interesting how quickly you landed on your feet after the hotel," Keller remarked with false casualness. "Though I wonder how your new Japanese employers would feel learning about your criminal history. Theft doesn't align with their cultural values of honor, does it?" He suggested that, unless she and Zara withdrew from the Tanaka project immediately, Montgomery would ensure her juvenile record became public knowledge, framing it as evidence she had been engaging in corporate espionage for years. "Consider your daughter's future," he added menacingly. "Scandal follows families for generations." Denise, shaken but determined to protect. Zara considered complying despite recognizing the profound injustice. That evening, she discussed the situation with her daughter, carefully explaining the difficult choices they faced. "Maybe we should walk away," she suggested reluctantly. "We still have the signing bonuses. We could move to another city, start fresh again." Zara surprised her mother with her resolute response. "Running means Montgomery wins. Again. And keeps hurting other people like us." When Haruki learned of this threat through Denise's reluctant confession the following day, his normally composed expression hardened with rare anger. He immediately called an emergency meeting with Sterling's CEO Victoria Chen, a formidable, Harvard-educated executive known for her strategic brilliance. Together they recognized that Montgomery's increasingly unethical tactics threatened not just their partnership, but potentially the entire accessibility technology market they were trying to create. The negative publicity from a smear campaign could damage public perception of accessibility tools, harming the deaf community they aimed to serve. They devised a multi-pronged strategy to counter Montgomery's move, with Zara playing a crucial role due to her unique communication abilities and compelling personal story. Victoria's team quietly investigated the source of the illegally obtained records, while Tanaka's legal department prepared responses to potential defamation. As pressure built toward both companies' announcements, Zara struggled with the enormous responsibility placed on her young shoulders. The upcoming presentation would require her to speak publicly for the first time, translating Haruki's sign language for the audience, while also demonstrating the technology. Despite her linguistic gifts, public speaking terrified her. "What if I freeze?" she asked Haruki during a practice session, her signs showing uncharacteristic hesitation. "What if I make a mistake and embarrass everyone?" Her relationship with the elderly businessman had evolved from curious acquaintances to something almost grandfatherly with him, encouraging her academic interests and sharing wisdom from his decades of business experience. When she expressed fear about Montgomery's threats and the upcoming confrontation, Haruki shared his own story of business intimidation early in his career when established electronics manufacturers had attempted to block his entry into the market through similar tactics. "They threatened my family, my reputation, my business," he signed. "I considered surrender many times." He explained how standing firm against these bullies had ultimately defined Tanaka Industries' ethical foundation and led to their eventual dominance in the market. "Courage isn't about feeling no fear." He signed his weathered hands, moving with emphasis. "Courage is feeling fear, but choosing principle anyway." His words strengthened Zara's resolve as the announcement date approached, though Montgomery's shadow loomed threateningly over their preparations. The day of the joint announcement arrived with clear skies and unseasonably warm temperatures, almost as if nature itself approved of the partnership. The venue, a renowned conference center in downtown Manhattan, began filling with technology journalists, industry leaders, disability advocates, and corporate representatives 2 hours before the scheduled presentation. Security was noticeably heightened following vague threats received by both Tanaka Industries and Sterling Innovations in the preceding days, with uniformed guards checking credentials at multiple checkpoints. Behind the scenes in the preparation area, Zara helped Haruki finalize his remarks, which he would deliver primarily in Japanese Sign Language, with her providing simultaneous spoken translation. They had rehearsed extensively, but nervous energy made her hands tremble slightly as they reviewed last-minute changes. "Remember," Haruki signed encouragingly, "you are not just my voice today. You represent all young people whose gifts go unrecognized because of prejudice." Denise helped adjust her daughter's new dress, a professional blue outfit custom-tailored for the occasion, pride evident in every gentle touch. Victoria Chen, Sterling CEO, stopped by their preparation room to check final details. "Our intelligence suggests Montgomery plans some form of disruption," she informed them quietly. "We've enhanced security, but be prepared for unexpected challenges." Her calm confidence, despite the threat, reassured the Williams women somewhat. Zara nodded with determination, squaring her shoulders, despite her racing heart. Unknown to them, Richard Montgomery had indeed orchestrated his countermove with meticulous malice. He had arranged for several protesters to disrupt the event, hiring actors to pose as deaf advocacy group representatives allegedly concerned about cultural appropriation by the companies. None actually knew sign language but carried professionally printed signs with inflammatory messages about exploitation. Montgomery had also prepared to announce Blackwood's supposedly competing technology immediately following Tanaka's presentation, scheduling a press conference in the same building just 30 minutes after the main event concluded. He planned to use the opportunity to publicly question Tanaka's business ethics and imply corporate espionage involving former hotel staff. As the event began, the auditorium lights dimmed, while Victoria Chen approached the podium to enthusiastic applause. Her opening remarks welcomed attendees and introduced the revolutionary translation technology that would build bridges across the communication divide that has separated deaf and hearing communities for generations. The demonstration proceeded smoothly, with Sterling executives showing early prototypes of devices incorporating Tanaka's accessibility features. The audience responded with increasing enthusiasm as they witnessed real-time translation between spoken English, American Sign Language, Japanese Sign Language, and written text simultaneously. The presentation reached its midpoint, when the disruption began. 6 individuals scattered throughout the audience suddenly stood unfurling banners with messages claiming exploitation of deaf culture for profit and cultural appropriation by corporate giants. They began shouting rehearsed slogans, creating immediate confusion as security personnel moved toward them. The legitimate deaf audience members looked particularly bewildered, many signing rapidly to each other, questioning who these protesters represented. Zara, watching from backstage, immediately noticed something odd about one protester near the front. The woman's facial expressions and body language seemed familiar, and with a jolt of recognition, Zara identified her as Montgomery's executive assistant who had been present during hotel negotiations. Realizing instantly that the protest was staged, she made a split-second decision that would change everything. Before security could remove all the disruptors, Zara courageously approached Victoria Chen at the podium, whispering urgently in her ear. After a moment's consideration, the CEO nodded and handed Zara the microphone, stepping aside with a supportive gesture. The audience's confused murmurs faded as this poised young black girl in a professional blue dress stood confidently at the center of the stage, the spotlight highlighting her remarkable composure despite her youth. "Good afternoon," she began, her voice clear despite her thundering heartbeat. "My name is Zara Williams. I'm 12 years old, and I'd like to address some concerns that have been raised." She continued speaking in English while simultaneously signing in Japanese Sign Language, demonstrating precisely the cross-cultural communication capability the technology aimed to facilitate. "2 weeks ago, I was invisible." She continued, her hands flowing gracefully through signs. "I was just a hotel maid's daughter, someone most executives in this room would walk past without seeing. Today, I help develop technology that will allow millions of deaf people worldwide to be seen and heard on equal terms." She explained how the technology was developed with continuous input from deaf communities globally, including Haruki Tanaka himself. "This isn't appropriation," she signed, and spoke simultaneously. "It's collaboration led by deaf individuals to solve problems they face daily." She shared her personal journey of learning sign language from Mrs. Yoshida, the deaf librarian who first recognized her linguistic gifts when her teachers saw only her skin color and economic status. The audience, initially skeptical, became captivated by this extraordinary young person fluidly communicating in multiple modalities. The genuine deaf audience members, recognizing the protesters as frauds based on their inability to respond appropriately to signed questions from actual deaf attendees, began explicitly showing support for Zara's statements. Several stood to applaud her courage, creating a visible contrast with the increasingly uncomfortable hired protesters. Security personnel discreetly escorted Montgomery's plants from the auditorium as his scheme publicly unraveled. Halfway through the presentation, the rear doors burst open dramatically as Richard Montgomery himself entered, his expensive suit immaculate, but his face flushed with barely controlled rage. "This entire presentation is based on stolen, proprietary information," he announced loudly, striding down the center aisle. "I have evidence of corporate espionage involving Tanaka Industries hiring hotel staff to steal Blackwood secrets." Before security could intercept and remove him, Kenji Tanaka made a surprising intervention, approaching the microphone with calm authority. "Mr. Montgomery clearly has serious concerns he wishes to address. In the spirit of transparency that guides both our companies, perhaps we should give him the platform to present his accusations properly with evidence." The audience murmured in surprise at this unexpected development as Montgomery was invited to the stage, momentarily thrown off balance by being granted the very opportunity he had intended to seize disruptively. What followed became infamous in business circles as the Montgomery meltdown. Given the platform he hadn't expected to receive legitimately, and fueled by weeks of mounting pressure and alcohol consumed for courage before the event, Montgomery launched into an increasingly unhinged tirade. He began with seemingly reasonable concerns about intellectual property, but quickly devolved into personal attacks against Tanaka Sterling, and specifically against Denise and Zara. His language became openly racist and classist, as his composure crumbled entirely. How can anyone believe a hotel maid and her daughter could legitimately contribute to billion-dollar technology, he demanded, gesturing dismissively toward Zara, who maintained remarkable poise despite his vitriol. These people were hired immediately after accessing confidential Blackwood materials. The connection is obvious to anyone with basic intelligence. Unaware that his microphone remained active even as he turned to address Kenji Tanaka directly, Montgomery continued his self-destruction. Your father may be impressed by some trick sign language from a child, but this is industrial espionage dressed up as diversity hiring. His voice dripped with contempt as he added, "We all know these inclusion initiatives are just for public relations anyway." Most devastatingly, in his increasingly agitated state, Montgomery revealed his deliberate discrimination against Denise at the hotel and his subsequent efforts to destroy her employment prospects throughout Manhattan. "I made sure she couldn't work in any decent establishment in this city," he declared with misplaced pride, apparently forgetting the public setting. "People need to learn there are consequences for getting in my way." The audience watched in stunned silence, as Montgomery effectively destroyed his own reputation and Blackwood's remaining credibility with every word. Journalists frantically recorded every damning statement, while industry executives exchanged shocked glances. Representatives from minority business alliances present for the accessibility announcement looked particularly disgusted. When he finally exhausted his accusations, breathing heavily, and expecting support that clearly wasn't forthcoming, Haruki Tanaka calmly approached the podium. The elderly businessman's dignified presence created an immediate contrast with Montgomery's disheveled emotional state. Through Zara's poised interpretation, he addressed the audience with measured words. In business as in life, character reveals itself under pressure. He began his signed words translated clearly by Zara. Tanaka Industries never had interest in Blackwood's original technology, which our research showed was considerably behind their public claims. This revelation caused whispers throughout the audience. Our actual interest was in discovering companies with ethical leadership and inclusive vision that could partner with us in making technology accessible to all people, regardless of ability. He gestured toward Montgomery, who stood frozen in dawning horror at his public self-immolation. Some leaders, when tested, reveal values incompatible with our mission. Haruki then turned to Zara with obvious respect, continuing to sign as she translated. Others, like this remarkable young woman with no corporate position or power, demonstrate precisely the principles our company values: integrity, courage, and genuine innovation. The event concluded with thunderous applause as Haruki, Victoria, Chen, Denise, and Zara together unveiled the actual technology, an AI-enhanced universal translator that worked across spoken languages, sign languages, and text simultaneously. The demonstration showed live translation between 5 languages and 3 sign language systems, creating a powerful visual representation of barriers being broken. As the presentation ended, Montgomery was quietly escorted from the building by security, his face ashen as journalists shouted questions about his discriminatory comments. Outside cameras captured his hasty retreat into a waiting car. An image that would appear on business publication covers alongside headlines about the billion-dollar blunder. Inside, Zara found herself surrounded by admirers, including deaf audience members, eager to communicate with her in various sign languages, technology journalists, requesting interviews, and industry executives suddenly very interested in the professed former invisible girl who had helped expose corporate discrimination while advancing groundbreaking technology. Haruki watched with grandfatherly pride as she handled the attention with remarkable poise, signing and speaking with a confidence that made her seem far beyond her 12 years. 6 months after the disastrous public confrontation that business publications dubbed the Montgomery Meltdown, the technology landscape had transformed dramatically. Blackwood Enterprises, following Richard Montgomery's forced resignation and multiple discrimination lawsuits from former employees, emboldened by his public admissions, underwent complete restructuring. The board replaced most executive leadership with a diverse team explicitly committed to ethical business practices and inclusive product development. Montgomery himself faced not only professional disgrace, but civil charges related to his harassment campaign against Denise and corporate espionage attempts. His personal fortune diminished significantly through legal settlements and devalued Blackwood stock options. Industry insiders reported he had retreated to a remote property in Wyoming, refusing all interview requests and becoming something of a cautionary tale in business ethics seminars nationwide. Meanwhile, the Tanaka-Sterling partnership flourished beyond initial projections. Their accessibility technology, officially named Universal Bridge, received international acclaim for its revolutionary approach to communication barriers. Schools for the deaf globally adopted the system, while major corporations integrated it into customer service operations. The United Nations recognized the technology with its annual Innovation Award for advancing global inclusion. Their market valuation exceeded initial projections by 40% within 6 months, creating what financial publications termed the first accessibility unicorn in the technology sector. More importantly, their success inspired a wave of inclusive design across multiple industries, with companies scrambling to incorporate accessibility features into products ranging from smartphones to household appliances. The Tanaka approach became shorthand for designing products with marginalized communities leading development rather than merely being consulted afterward. Denise Williams, once struggling to support her daughter on a hotel maid's salary, now headed the Community Impact Division at Tanaka-Sterling's expanded New York headquarters. Her department, staffed by 50 professionals from diverse backgrounds, oversaw programs providing accessibility technology to underserved communities worldwide. They developed specific initiatives focused on creating employment opportunities for people from marginalized backgrounds in the technology sector, including paid internships for low-income students and training programs for deaf individuals interested in technical careers. Denise frequently spoke at business conferences about workplace discrimination and the economic benefits of diverse hiring practices, her authentic perspective bringing powerful insights to corporate audiences. Her testimony before a congressional committee on workplace discrimination helped advance legislation strengthening protections for service industry employees. Publications including Forbes and Black Enterprise featured her remarkable journey in cover stories about transformational leadership and breaking artificial barriers to talent recognition. Zara, now 13 and in 8th grade, balanced her consultant role, school responsibilities, and growing public profile as a young advocate with remarkable maturity. She attended an academically rigorous private school on full scholarship, where teachers properly challenged her intellectual gifts and peers respected her accomplishments. With Haruki's mentorship, she established a nonprofit organization called SignBridge, teaching sign language and accessibility awareness in public schools throughout New York City. The initiative quickly expanded to 10 schools and received funding to reach 50 more the following year. The substantial college fund created for her by Tanaka Industries ensured her educational future. But she already received preliminary interest from prestigious universities, impressed by her unique combination of linguistic talent, technical understanding, and demonstrated leadership. During a White House conference on youth innovation, the president personally commended her contributions to accessibility technology. Haruki Tanaka, having found in Zara the daughter figure who shared his passion for breaking communication barriers, announced a significant expansion of the Accessibility Technology Division with an additional $100 million investment. At the press conference announcing this commitment, he revealed that the next generation of their translation technology would be named the Zara Protocol, in honor of the young girl whose courage and linguistic gifts had bridged worlds. True innovation, he signed with Zara Translating, often comes from those society has trained itself not to see. Our company's future depends on finding these overlooked perspectives. In a private celebration following this announcement, Tanaka's executive team gathered with the Williams family in the company's rooftop garden. As sunset painted Manhattan's skyline in golden light, Zara found a quiet moment with Haruki away from the festivities. "Did you know this would happen?" she signed curiously. "When you first saw me signing in the hotel." The elderly businessman shook his head, his weathered hands forming signs with characteristic grace. "I recognized a gift," he responded. "But the courage to use that gift under pressure, that was your choice alone." When he asked what she had learned from their extraordinary journey, Zara responded thoughtfully that true communication wasn't just about languages or technology, but about actually seeing people who are typically overlooked. The most dangerous discrimination she observed, her signs precise and thoughtful, isn't always loud hatred, but the quiet dismissal of human potential based on appearance or circumstance. Haruki nodded approvingly at this wisdom from someone so young. The story concluded with Zara receiving an invitation to address the United Nations Forum on Youth Innovation and Inclusion. As she practiced her presentation in Tanaka's office after school, planning to deliver it in multiple spoken languages and sign systems, she glanced at a framed photograph prominently displayed on her desk. It showed her mother Denise and herself standing proudly between Haruki Tanaka and Victoria Chen at the original product launch, all signing breakthrough together. Beneath it sat the original billion-dollar contract between Tanaka Industries and Sterling Innovations, with Zara's signature as youth consultant visible at the bottom, tangible proof that those once invisible can become indispensable when given the opportunity to be truly seen. What moment in this story resonated with you most deeply? Was it Zara finding her voice, Denise receiving recognition for her capabilities, or Montgomery facing consequences for his discrimination? Comment below with the part that touched your heart. And let us know if you've ever witnessed someone's hidden talents being discovered in unexpected circumstances. If you believe everyone deserves to be seen for their true potential, regardless of background, please like this video and share it with someone who might need this message today. Subscribe to our channel for more stories that challenge our assumptions about who can make a difference in this world. Thank you for joining us on this journey from invisibility to impact, proving that sometimes the most powerful voices come from those we've been taught not to hear. The story of Zara Williams reveals a profound truth about our society. Talent exists everywhere, but opportunity does not. When we judge people based on their appearance, background, or social status, we miss extraordinary gifts hidden in plain sight. Richard Montgomery's racist attitudes didn't just harm Denise and Zara. They ultimately destroyed his own company by blinding him to potential that didn't match his narrow worldview. Meanwhile, Haruki Tanaka's willingness to look beyond conventional assumptions led to revolutionary technology and unprecedented success. True innovation requires diversity of thought and experience. The most valuable perspectives often come from those society has marginalized precisely because they see what others miss. Zara's multilingual abilities weren't developed in privileged schools, but in public libraries and through genuine human connection with people different from herself. This story challenges us to examine our own biases. Who do we overlook? Whose voices do we dismiss? What talents go unrecognized in our workplaces, schools, and communities because they come packaged in unexpected forms? The most dangerous discrimination isn't always overt hatred, but the quiet dismissal of human potential. When we train ourselves to truly see people rather than categories, we discover unseen brilliance that can transform not just individual lives, but entire industries and societies. Has someone ever underestimated you because of your background, appearance, or circumstances? Or have you witnessed someone's hidden talents finally being recognized after years of being overlooked? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might inspire others facing similar challenges. If you believe everyone deserves to be seen for their true potential, regardless of race, class, or ability, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. We share stories that challenge assumptions about who can make a difference in this world. Help spread this message by sharing this video with someone who might be fighting to be seen or heard in their workplace, school, or community. Sometimes knowing you're not alone in that struggle makes all the difference. Thank you for joining us on this journey from invisibility to impact. Remember, the next world-changing idea might come from the person society has taught you to ignore. Stay open to unexpected brilliance, and you might just witness something extraordinary.